What's up, guys? I'm gonna do a small mod today on this car. So the mod is gonna be, right now I have Bluetooth USB that connects to aux. That's nice. And then I have the full mount wireless charge. But I don't use the cigarette lighter much. So I'm going to remove it and put a double USB in here, which is very simple in this car. You have to be careful of the push start button. This thing just goes straight up, and then this tray comes out. This tray comes out and you can get to the wires. On some cars you could just pull this out. Then there's two wires back there. Okay, for tools, you're gonna need wire snips, possibly a couple connectors, wire strippers. Should be pretty straightforward. You could also solder, but it just depends. Might use some of these. You just want a clean connection. Worst case scenario, you pop a fuse, you just have to put in a fuse. Okay, so here's the new part. Two USB ports. Then you got two connectors. You splice them in. About to pull this out and get to it. So for this, you need to pull this boot up. And here's a lock ring. That slides up. Just have to be careful. There's two pins in here for the push start. Okay, now you can get to this. This thing's kind of dirty. Okay, now you got this trim off. Okay, there's a secret button here to unlock in case the battery dies. You might as well unlock it. Okay, now you have two wires here. So this is the plug for the cigarette lighter, and this is a module for the keyless. Should be for the keyless. Okay, when you get all these coins out, which I don't know where to dump them. A lot of times people get coins into the cigarette lighter port, and it pops a fuse too. Now you try to wiggle the cigarette lighter back out, which might be tricky. You could use a flathead or a pry tool. There's a couple clips on this plastic. So now we got it halfway out, but there's a light that goes to the cubby port, so I'm gonna try to pop it out. Here's the light. Okay, here's the cigarette lighter port. So it looks like this is ground, this is probably the light, and this is probably the power. Since they're the thicker wires. Okay, now what I like to do, put this thing back in park. Okay, what you want to do to test is find a good spot to ground, which you do usually the seat bolts. Or you could try to ground on there. What's that painting in here? Try to get this loose penny out. Okay, got it out. Okay, now we're gonna hook up, find a ground just to double check our positive connection. So we're probably gonna use that. So that's our positive. So these two are positive. This is obviously the light. That's the main positives. The red and white. Brown is a ground. Okay, so now we know our positive. Now we need to double check this hole's big enough for our USB port. Take off this lock ring, take off this rubber grommet, don't really need it. And on here we have labeled, this thing focuses, positive, ground. Okay, as you can see, it's a little bit too big. So what we'll have to do is drill it so it fits. In this case, I'm going to try to turn it in there, but as you can see, it's a little too big, so I'm going to probably get the solder iron melted a little bit, and then it'll fit. But if you look at it, this hole, it's for the stock, so it's kind of small. USB thing's kind of big. So what I'm trying to do is take off some material. There's two ways to do it. You can either, three ways. You can use solder iron, a Dremel, or you could hole saw, but we don't need that much material off. So I'll totally try the Dremel. Now we put our lock ring on, which is going to be tricky. So what we'll do is push it back out. I always want like a snug fit, just makes it a little bit better. Okay, so you have to clear those two. And if you want, you could always add a light back up to the cubby. Okay, you gotta line this up. A snug fit, which is always a plus. Okay, gotta not forget it's plastic. Cool, now it looks clean. Now for the wires, you want to, you always want to make the keys out of the ignition. Make sure the key's out of the ignition. So we're gonna cut our brown one. And we're gonna cut our red and white one. This thing we could probably just cut it off too. And make sure to tape up that blue wire. Put it back on the old one just in case you want to go back that route. Put the little light back, which just sits in here like this. spring loaded. Okay. Probably just keep it as a spare for future. Okay, now you grab your 2 connectors, wire strippers. I'm gonna strip off a good amount, which is easy. Okay, this is your positive. You really don't want to lay it down. Just hold it for a sec. Okay, now you get this. So you want to make sure to get it inside the metal part, and the blue is just the casing. What I like to do is just put it on and turn it. Kind of spin it on there. Make sure it's all the way in the metal thing. Then you grab your wire crimpers. Crimp it once or twice. Be careful. Okay, it doesn't take too much pressure too. Okay, now we have a good connection there. Same thing for the ground. Cool, now we got 2 good connections. What I'm going to do is wrap this wire around, just in case I want to add a light. I could add light anywhere in the car, honestly, which comes on only when the ignition's on. Also, you could take power from these 2 and add LEDs, add stereo on, anything pretty much. Just want to tape this up now. Okay, so first I'm going to tape up this little blue wire, just a tiny bit. You want to make this tape kind of tight. Then when you tuck it in, just make sure it's not in the way of where the little cubby clicks in. Okay, nice. Now we have 2 nice connections. So I'm going to put it back in drive so it's easier to put the cubby in and out. Always plug up the short wire first. Or the long wire, whatever's easier. Look at our polarity. Okay, it's gonna be ground. And then we have our positive. Okay, you want to make sure both connections are nice and tight, not loose. Now we'll make sure the wires are not in the way. Just gonna lay this in for a second. wash. Okay, now we grab our key. Okay, we got power. We'll hook up our USB. Key comes on. Hook up our phone mount. Phone mount has power. That means we're good to go. You could also hide these anywhere, in the glove box, anywhere to be honest. Put a little rubber mat back. We'll have to tuck these in. Or we can route them whatever way we want. Okay, now we're gonna put our trim back. Try to clean this up a little bit, but I'm not going to detail the car at the moment. So once you got the key off, make sure these plugs are on the same spot. Just 2 plugs, one for electronic, other one for your suspension module. Another good tip is to disconnect the battery, but I have the Mercedes scanner, so if I get any codes, I'll just clear them. Now we gotta figure out the orientation for this. Okay, our push start works. Hammer that on. Okay, turn it off. Now we just have to lock this ring. Center the knob a little bit. Then we'll click this boot over. Boot on. That's pretty much it. If you need help with this mod, let me know. Other than that, everything's good to go.